All right, so I actually want to do what I said I was going to do several videos ago. I want to start doing these questions and answers from the comments, okay? All right, keep watching. All right, so before we actually get started with this, I want to do this study tip disclaimer. So any of the information that I share in this particular video, of course, I'm not necessarily saying that any of this is going to happen to you. This is just coming from a practitioner's perspective, of course, and I want to give you the tools that could potentially help you on your path of attainment, okay? So if you're actually new to this channel, you should actually consider subscribing, because what I go over in my content is esoteric and exoteric research in retrospect to how it influences you, and how by being on a more pious lifestyle, how that can connect you back up to that which you were attempted to be disconnected from, okay? So like I was saying in the introduction, of course, I want to do some questions and answers. So this is, I'm pulling some information from the from videos, of course, and random comments, of course. So if you are interested in seeing your actual question get answered in these particular sessions, then make sure that you actually leave your responses underneath the like button for me, okay? So the very first one that we're gonna read here, this is from Zariah 1. What she's saying here, she said, I feel like it's difficult to be married and pursue this path when it comes to Christ oil. I mean, Hebrew Israelites are having multiple wives, having numerous children, and they think that's righteous, okay? So this is what I want to kind of comment to this, because what we have happening, of course, is a lot of texts, of course, that people are coming in contact with. They're literally trying to read that information and apply it to their possible pleasures that they have, to make it align to where they can feel comfortable with fulfilling any of the desires that they want, you know, from a lust perspective. So I have seen in certain groups where certain teachings that deal with males having more than one woman, of course, but then they're actually applying it to the mind that people actually have today. So you can't take something that was dealing with a different type of mind and then try to apply it to how everyone is being kind of indoctrinated today with the systems of perversion and so forth. So then with that mind being applied to something that somebody probably was doing in a different type of system, it's not going to work. So I wouldn't necessarily say that I would encourage this type of behavior. And if there are groups who are actually leaning toward these types of positions, then they're just fulfilling as it is as it was in the days of Noah, okay? So I hope that kind of answers this question, because, you know, there's a lot of groups, of course, who are not promoting, you know, keeping the seed within you, you know, rising up the oil from within and anointing thy head with oil. So there you'll find that there are a lot of organizations, contaminating organizations. I'm not saying that the Hebrew Israelite movement is contaminated, because there are certain teachings in those groups, of course, that are actually very helpful, especially if someone is coming out of the indoctrination systems. I'm not saying that this is not also a form of indoctrination. So what I've seen that they do is they change the identity of the pictures or the names, but they kind of keep the same traditions of that organization. But then the one thing that they do that I find very needed is they at least highlight the laws, if you get what I'm saying. So it is a very good transitional something to get involved with if you're transitioning from the indoctrination systems that are completely distorted, and then this is like a path of you getting to something that is less distorted. So I do agree with that law aspect, but in some things that are gratifying the flesh, I'm not necessarily agreeing with that, okay? So I hope that answers that that statement there for you. So the next one we have here is from Catherine Mendez. She's saying, why was Abraham told to be fruitful and multiply if we are supposed to keep our pants up? Okay, so if you've been, listening and viewing any of my content, you notice that I've been showing 1 John 3 line 9 process, the being born of God. Now, in this situation, of course, we're not necessarily in the days of Abraham. According to the writings, we're actually in the days of Noah. Okay, so obviously, when you're dealing with someone such as like unto this, of course, who dealing with the previous response, we're just dealing with a different time. So we can't, apply information that was given to somebody who didn't necessarily have a corrupt mind, so to speak, as compared to what people actually have today. Let me introduce something here that might help with that. So this is from the Book of Truth, or the Voice of Osiris. Now this is page 30. So it says, "Hear, my children, it would be well to mention this fact that marriage was a thing never sanctioned, except the persons in question were accepted through the Adamic priesthood and were found to be in complete harmony, and were not merely attracted as mortal sex man and woman," right? It says also reproduction was only to be carried on at the express command of Melchizedek, who was in command of the evolution of the Yahwahic man of earth at what? That time of Atlantis. So then most people who are familiar with this Melchizedek, that in some teachings is another name for Enoch. So then when you're talking about Abraham, you're actually talking about someone who is close to that time that this writing is actually referring to. So, we had certain ways of being able to make sure that people were not together just because of the gratification of the flesh. You get what I'm saying? So we had ways of looking at people and making sure that the divine spark was present, and that they were not just attracted as mortal sex man and woman, because key word here is mortal. So we were on the path of being immortal. So we were trying to make sure that no one was participating in mortal behavior, death behavior, if that makes sense. So that kind of helps with this question here. Why was Abraham told to be fruitful and multiply? And according to the writings, we see that Abraham was closer to the days of Enoch. Does that kind of make sense? Or Melchizedek. All right, so I hope that answers that question for you. So we're actually in the days of Noah, okay? So then the next question we have here, this is from Sonia Gladney. She's saying, so be fruitful and multiply, as said in scripture, shouldn't exist. So this kind of goes along with the previous question about the Abraham. So being fruitful and multiplying, we're really dealing with possibly a different time frame. Don't forget Hebrews 1 and 2, by whom he made the worlds. So what I've come to see in the distortions and all the various different texts that I've come across is that things looks like they have been pieced together. So it might be talking about these different areas of existence, but then they'll take certain texts from those areas and then combine them with texts from a whole nother system, a whole nother star system, or a whole nother world, and then they'll piece them together to make it seem like it was only dealing with one continuous storyline. And that's what you find, especially when people are only dealing with the heaven and hell concept. So they don't necessarily, they're not being taught that there are more than one world, even though Hebrews 1 and 2 clearly says by whom he made the worlds. Let me introduce something to you that actually might help with that. So this is actually a universal time matrix, okay? So most people who are actually familiar with anything such as like unto this have a conscious experience at the personality matrix level, okay? So that is 3D Earth. So Earth has various different density levels, dimensions, and most people are only necessarily familiar with the 3D version of it, okay? So when you're in that particular hologram experience, then you're caught up in the personality matrix. Do you get what I'm trying to explain? So anytime that you have something along these lines, these types of systems actually tries to separate you from the living construct. So when you become separated from the living construct, you are actually only existing in a hologram experience or a holograph experience. And And I want that to make sense to you. So let me see if this illustration might help. So on the lambda genome, so the left arm path, of course, is talking about the separation of forces, okay? So when you're dealing with the separation of forces, of course, you're dealing with something called matter in life. So matter in life is basically a mounting mass unto your being. So you're participating in something called photosynthesis, which is a sexual genesis, okay? That's the separation of the forces. So when you're in that type of conscious experience, of course, you're really disassociated from the living construct. Does that make sense? So it's interesting when you see an illustration like this, and then you see an illustration such as like unto this. Now I'm going to explain these two illustrations in a second, okay? I'm kind of putting the cart before the horse here, but I just wanted to at least show you real quick that we have different density levels and we have different dimensions. So someone consciously might be on what they think is a planet, but then their whole identity is kind of in something that's associated with a hologram. So they're completely disconnected from the living construct. And I'm going to make that make sense here for you in a moment here. So then when we have something like what Sonia is talking about, so be fruitful and multiply, said in scripture, should that even exist? So we also have to take in consideration who it was being told to, and then when we advance on in the writings, what those writers are actually saying. So we don't actually see the same words as you advance on in the book called Bible. When you advance on in those writings, it kind of goes to as it was in the days of Noah. No one is talking about being fruitful and multiplying, and I think that's one of the key areas that some teachings don't expound on is they gravitate toward what people call the Old Testament, and it's very important to have that foundation because there's a lot of laws and a lot of instructions in there that help with DNA hygiene. However, we can't omit the writings that are in the so-called New Testament because that is actually showing you the times that you're in, and you really need to go into those teachings that particular Ma'anda'an was actually teaching, and what he was advocating for is the reunification of the forces, okay? So I hope that answers that question for you. All right, so the next one we have here, this is from Baltzazar Moro. He's saying, nah, too much nonsense. Okay, so I think the video that he's commented on is the Gospel According to Thomas, the saying 18. So, in that particular video, that is an advanced video. I did do a regular video, of course, but that one is the more advanced video. What he's basically saying is, or what he's commenting on is how I'm saying that we had during the zygote experience, we came into lower existences and we've just been continuing on after that, and how we have to develop into a carbon atom, which is the model for all living organisms on the planet, okay? So it's really just connecting you back up to that which you were separated from. So that's what I was explaining in that particular video, and I'll link that underneath the like button for anybody who wants to view that video, but it is an advanced video and everybody is not a part of this being connected back up process. So it would make sense that something like this is said. So let me just move on to the next one here. So this is from Daniel Bungard. He's saying, I feel like it's more simple than that. He's just saying we came from heaven and are going back to heaven. We came from source and go back to source. It feels like you're reading too far into it and making leaps of logic and connecting things that don't connect. This comment actually is from the same video, saying 18 from the Gospel According to Thomas. And in that particular video, I'm explaining how you have to become a carbon atom. So basically what you're doing, let me see if I have that illustration here so I can show you real quick just in case you haven't seen it. So what I was explaining, see down here in the age of stars, I'm basically saying you came down this funnel. So let's go to the top here. So anytime that the sperm enters into a woman, they say that it causes something like a bang, right? There's an explosion. What they don't tell you is that as soon as the sperm enters inside of the woman, her white blood cells actually starts killing the sperm. That's the part that they don't tell you. You get what I'm saying? And in that particular video, I did leave an illustration in there. I'll link it underneath the like button so you can watch it, that shows that as soon as the sperm enters into the woman, her body starts killing the sperm. And the reason why it does that is because it was never supposed to enter in there in the first place. And something that was established like that would not try to kill something if that is the divine way that something is supposed to happen. So the ones that get past the killing are the ones that actually make it to what people call these eggs or whatever, and then they're trying to get there, and then there's an explosion that takes place, right? What I'm basically saying is that's the Big Bang that they're talking about. So then you have a Big Bang experience, and then you're basically splitting. All of the forces are being split through the making of what they call the zygote. Remember, in the book of Revelations, it says, I'll put the goats on the left and the sheep on the right. So there's a reason why they call it a zygote, okay? So then as you're going down this funnel, you can look at this as being your forces split. So all your forces are being split as you come down this funnel here. And then, you're just continually being split, you're continually being split, you're continually being split, and then you come out down here, and then you enter into something called a universal time matrix here. Let me see if I can get that other illustration here. So I showed you this earlier. Notice how we just went through this cone process, and notice how at the top of this, there's also a cone. You see that in the top left-hand corner up there? So you came all the way down to the bottom. Do you get what I'm saying? And then you came through that period as being the zygote experience, of course, entering into a personality matrix that's caught up in subconscious mind, atomic processes, physical body intelligence, and hard drive cellular memories. And you got to try to figure out how to get out of that. And that's what I've been trying to help people do in my content. Okay, so that's pretty much what I'm explaining in that video. Like I said, I'll leave it underneath the like button in the description area so you can see it. But that's really what's there. So you would have to just see it for yourself and see what you decide. Okay. So the next comment we have here, this is from Daryl James. He says, "Can you provide a reference on the Christ oil? I heard it referenced before, but I can't find any real clinical evidence." So if you're looking for clinical evidence, you're not going to be able to find it. So let me see here if I have that illustration in my where it comes from, but it's oil. The word Christ actually translates to oil. So the word Christ actually is a Greek word. Here it is. So the word Christ is a Greek word, and when you look this up, get you a Strong's Concordance, it translates to oiled or oiled or covered in oil. Remember how in the so-called Bible they say you wouldn't be able to anoint thy head with oil? So when you're not able to anoint thy head with oil, it's because your oil is coming out through the locust sexual desire experience. So that's why you're not able to anoint thy head with oil. So don't forget about those ones who was going around knocking on people's doors trying to get oil because they ran out of oil. Remember? So that's what it's referring to, is Christ actually translates to oil. Now the reason why I'm trying to show you this illustration here of being connected back up, because it appears that when you were both male and female in one body, it appears that has something to do with the living construct. Because when you think of oil, you also have this experience. Now this is taking place in the sea. Now what they're actually drilling for is oil. And that oil is what? It's black. Do you get what I'm saying? And Christ, or male, is black. do you get what I'm saying? So we have the same thing that's happening to the earth, which is a female. You get what I'm saying? Is the same thing that's actually happening to the people. Do you get what I'm trying to explain? That's the reason why it says here in Zechariah 9:4, it says, "Behold, the Lord will cast her out, and he will smite her power in the sea." What's taking place in the sea? They're drilling for oil. Do you get what I'm saying? So they're literally killing the planet. That's the reason why you have Revelations 11, line 18 that says, "And the nations were angry, and thy wrath is come, and the time of the dead, that they should be judged, and that thou shouldest give reward unto thy servants, the prophets, and to the saints, and what? And them that fear thy name, small and great, and shouldest what? Destroy them which destroy the earth." Do you get what I'm trying to explain? And that's real interesting. Now, I did do a video talking about the Parse syntax on this word destroy. Let me see if I have that right here real quick for you. So here's Parse syntax. So the word destroy, DES, translates to some or any, and then you have Troy, which is a system of weights used mainly for precious metals and gems. So when they know that this English language has these spells and curses in there. Do you get what I'm trying to explain? So when you're saying the word destroy, in your mind, you're probably thinking about the eradicating of something, right? But then when you think about the eradicating of something, you could possibly be asking for something along these lines. Do you get what I'm saying? You could possibly be asking for the drilling of something like this, because that's what they're doing. They're destroying the earth by digging up the precious metals that are in the earth. Do you get what I'm trying to explain? And the same thing is within you. Don't forget the Israelites were all considered metal, some form of a precious metal. And you had a list of various different metals. I'll see if I can put a few on the screen there. You jasper, emerald, all these various different precious stones. And these are the same things that they're actually extracting from the living construct. So we have the oil that's being extracted from the sea, and then we have the precious metals that are being extracted from the ground. The same exact thing is what's happening to the people. Do you get what I'm saying? So that's what they're doing, is they're actually, like for example, here's this illustration here. They got this hanging up on their wall. So if you look at what I have circled here, that dialong right there looks like a little baby dragon. When you look up what the word dialong is, it translates to earthworm extract. So it's very possible, you've heard me say that this is a him, but this possibly could be a she that's right here. And that is the earth that is literally crying because we have those who are actually destroying her, or destroying she. Let me just say she, or Tia, or whatever names that we want to use there. There's various different names to describe Tia or TT or whatever we want to say. Ki, we can use the word ki. You get what I'm saying? But this very possibly could be a she. In earlier videos, I said it was a he, but that could be actually a she with the dialong, because the dialong is earthworm extract. So then we see that we have something like this taking place in the sea. They're literally destroying destroying key. Let's key. You get what I'm saying? Because and then the people are not actually able to heal her because they're disconnected from her. They're disconnected from her. You get what I'm saying? If you get what I'm trying to explain. So the same thing that's happening with the people is actually happening to the planet, and that's the reason why you have this in Revelations 11 and 18, where it says, let's go ahead and get rid of them that's trying to get rid of the earth. And that's exactly what's happening. It's a direct correlation. So then when you see something like this, when you hear me talk about hologram, you're really talking about most people's consciousness is not actually in the living construct. It's not actually in the planet, so to speak. It's in the hologram. And it's like some form of something that is designed on top of something else. So most people's consciousness is stored in those fictitious ideas. You get what I'm trying to explain? And there's a strong reason why they do what they do on the land. Like, for example, in the so-called Americas, they're not even allowing, they say, they're trying not to say, they're doing things where they're saying, hey, you can't even plant anything. What they're basically trying to do is disconnect you from the living construct. But then the civilization of deception, they're making sure that they have the gardens and they have the best of the farmland and doing this, that, and the third. Don't allow anyone to tell you that you can't plant anything. Okay, so let's go ahead and we're going to make that decision right here, right now, that this is the moment that we need to get connected back up, because you were both male and female in the beginning, and they have split you. And what I'm thinking that they've split us from is from the actual planet. Do you get what I'm saying? And they're destroying the planet, and they're also destroying the people. All right, so I hope that actually answers your question about that in terms of why you're not going to find any clinical evidence. So moving on to the next one here. So this is from Chicken Bible Syndrome. He's saying this guy in the video is so incredibly wrong. He clearly isn't a true initiate. Okay, so the video that he's actually commenting on is the one that says, is the Bible true? So I used a clip, an earlier clip of this guy who was explaining about these beings who came from a different place, and they came here as geneticists, and they created people and all this other kind of stuff, right? So I'm not saying that I agree with everything that this guy has ever published, okay? Like I said, this is an older video. I'll link this video also underneath the like button for you. But this is what he's referring to in this particular comment. He's just basically saying this guy is not credible because he isn't a real initiate and he's following after this or following after that. But the clip that I used was very useful for the whole video in terms of how it was being explained. So there's going to be many distortions that we have, like especially when we're trying to piece together all of our information that was taken by another group and they put their faces and names and stuff on there. Obviously, they wrote it in a way in which to keep us possibly creating environments that actually support their existence. I'm not saying that that didn't happen. However, we knew thousands of years before it happened that this was going to happen. So what other way was we're going to be able to keep information around for that moment whenever we got up out of our sleep? Do you get what I'm saying? Imagine if we just didn't have any information to look at. So obviously we knew that something was going to happen. I mean, look what they did with the information. Imagine what they would have did if they never had any information at all. Do you get what I'm trying to explain? So don't completely do away with someone just because you don't agree completely with them, because it might be something that they have that you can piece together to some other information that might be the missing piece of the puzzle. Does that kind of make sense? So we might mess up our path of attainment just by completely shutting our ears to knowledge, if you get what I'm saying. Like, for example, there's been times where I've purchased books and it was the very last page in the book that I actually needed. And I didn't know that until I read the whole entire book. So so that's just an example, okay? So I hope that kind of helps you all with that. So getting to the next one here. So this is another one from Zariah. She's saying, how do you not accumulate matter? This is actually a good question here. So this kind of goes with this illustration that we were talking about earlier, talking about this left path. So it appears that whenever you are completely disconnected, which is what the civilization has been working to do, when you're completely disconnected from the living construct and you're not assisting the living construct properly because you don't have oil to help and you're not creating that appropriate linkage, then it shows that you possibly have your thoughts and ideas in a hologram experience. So we can look at the hologram as being like physical types of stuff, like because it says that these intruders create luxury. So they create things for you to participate in, ideas that are completely disconnected from the planet. Do you get what I'm trying to explain? So that's how that's how you accumulate matter or mass. So then as you are completely purging out any of these contaminating associations, then you're also releasing yourself from an electromagnetic static haze. And that's kind of what this mass is. It's like an electromagnetic static haze. So you're dealing with the personality matrix. So once you snap out of that, then that's how you start to not accumulate that kind of stuff. And then you move on up here to what they call the soul matrix. Do you get what I'm trying to explain? And you deal with everything that's there. Then you get up here to other areas that you see written about in other texts. And you're really just in the same place. You're just kind of drawing a connection to yourself in these different levels of existence, if you get what I'm trying to explain. So this is what it means to become a nation. You get what I'm saying? Most people are actually disconnected from themselves. So in my content, is the whole purpose is to get you to be connected back up to yourself. Like most people might have dreams and they see themselves in a body. It's like, okay, how do you see yourself in a body, but then you have a body that's supposedly laying on a bed or on whatever it is that you rest on? Think about that. So that shows that you have the ability to have a conscious experience of yourself within another vehicle. Sometimes you might see yourself from the outside, like you're on the outside looking at yourself. Like there's various different visual views you have in these experiences, and these are all you. You know, sometimes you might be looking at yourself and it feels like you're just not necessarily controlling yourself, you're just watching what yourself is doing. Sometimes you can influence yourself while you're outside of yourself. Sometimes you can look through the eyes of yourself. Sometimes it's so many different viewpoints, but these are just examples of experiences that you can have if you shake off the ignorance, okay? All right, so that's what will help with that, is by disassociating yourself from ideas that fall. So let's look at ideas like little bitty bubbles. So every time that you participate in an idea, put that idea in a bubble. So then that's a piece of your consciousness that's stored in that bubble. And typically that bubble can be connected up with something else that's lower. So then it kind of pulls you into lower experiences. So then you can look at that as matter, like some form of a weight that's trying to weigh you down consciously. So then you become unaware of yourself in these higher experiences, and you're only aware of wherever you store the most of your pieces at. Does it kind of make sense? Like most people who are very materialistic, you'll notice that they don't dream or they don't remember their dreams. And the only experience that they're aware of is the reality that's kind of like hologramish like, or depending upon, you know, what your experience is. Does that kind of make sense? So that's the goal here, is to disassociate. If you're going to do something, be as if you're not even doing it. That's the best way I can explain it. Don't get attached to something, if you get what I'm trying to explain. All right, so hopefully that helps with that. All right, so the next one we have here is, we got Brahman here. He says he's escaped the intruders, gaining the crowns, and fighting the outer. He combats me a lot. Okay, so he looks like he's referring to his outer man, the outer and the inner. So he's dealing with that battle there. But he said he escaped the intruders and he's gaining his crowns. So what he's referring to in terms of the crowns, in an earlier video, I'll link it underneath the like button. But in that particular video, I'm discussing how you have 10 horns in the Book of Revelations. It talks about these 10 horns, and you have to develop the crowns for your 10 horns. So I'm saying that the 10 horns are these. So you have your 2 eyes, that's 2. You have your 2 ears, now you're at 4. You have your 2 nostrils, now you're at 6. You have your mouth, now you're at 7. You have your skin, which is 8. You have your front area, private area, and you have your back private area. So that's 10. Those are the 10 entry points of the body. So those are 10 horns. So then you have to become the beast that riseth up out of the sea. And what's the sea? The lower self, down there in the feces, the cesspool area. Because most systems today are trying to disconnect you from the living construct, so they have everyone participating in feces enjoyment. So you have to be the one that rises up out of the cesspool, and you're gaining the crowns for your 10 horns as you do that. So that's what the brother here is talking about, is that he has he's gaining his crowns, and he's fighting the outer mind. Do you get what I'm saying? So he's going to turn his soul from the outside to the inside, if you get what I'm trying to explain, and then let it go up, and then you develop the halo around your head. That's the reason why you see that circle around certain people's heads and so forth, showing that they basically are making their stand in the beginning. So then when you put a point, and then you say this is the beginning, and then you go around, and then you have the end. So where the end is, there the beginning is. You see what I'm saying? So that's kind of like what that halo experience is talking about. So that's what the brother is doing. So that's pretty motivating to have someone that's actually, on the path of attainment and seeking out this information. So I do actually appreciate him sharing that with us. Now, like I said, we're just not in that moment right now. That's the reason why I shared this here, to explain that yes, there are writings earlier on, because a lot of teachings, especially in the Hebrew Israelite movement, they are reintroducing the Old Testament to people, because in the Constantinian dogmas, they kind of lean more toward the New Testament without giving you the everything that's in there, because most people don't read. Do you get what I'm trying to explain? So then they're just allowing the one that's up there at the pulpit to pull them in the pit. That's why they call it a pulpit. So they're standing at the pulpit, and then you have the people sitting in the pew. And anytime that something is stinking, that's what you say, pew. So they're literally telling you the whole theme while you're in that place. It's hidden in the words, but most people don't. That's what we got to do. We just need to stop being manipulated. All right, so that's kind of the concept there that I wanted to share with you. But this is where we're at. So we have to understand that the same thing that's happening to our living construct, which to me is a female. It says he made a male and female in the beginning, and I'm thinking that has a lot to do with this living construct here. So, and then as you are snapping out of the ignorance, you'll notice that there's a communication that's trying to happen, but we're also dealing with the pain that she is in because of what these ones who are destroying the planet is doing, if you get what I'm trying to explain. So now we need those who are actually participating in the 1 John 3 line 9 process, so we can heal our woman, if you get what I'm trying to explain. So if you really think about it, if you go several years or whatever, you'll notice that the closer we were to the planet, the better everything was for us as a people. The further we got away from the planet, we're caught up in a hologram experience. Most people are in a holograph. They call it polarity, conflict, and drama. Most people are participating in polarity, conflicts, and dramas now. And then you'll have people who have land who will leave the land just to participate in the polarity, conflict, and drama, if you get what I'm trying to explain. So that's what we're really dealing with when we're talking about this oil process and healing that which the civilization of deception is seeking to destroy. By making sure that people are not able to rise the oil from within them. And that's the reason why in this illustration here, you see how they have the little bird thing there with their foot on the fish. And and that's synonymous with oil. That's the reason why they always reference to the Jesus character, and you'll see like a fish. But that's what it has. It has that smell. It has a smell similar to that. So what they're showing you here is they're getting all the earthworm extract, and then they're trying to make sure that you don't know how to raise it from within you. And that's why it says that the locust will consume your oil. You get what I'm saying? And you won't be able to send it up, because the locust is consuming it. Do you get what I'm saying? So I want that to really make sense to you. If you found value in this content, support the channel. I have various different ways that you can do that. These videos get over 100 views. So if one of you, 10, each or whatever the case may be, it just really helps to make sure that I'm able to not do something else, and I can just focus on providing this content to you. And then we're also, don't forget about the fund. We have that going on. I'll link that video in the underneath the like button for you as well. But I want to continue to do these. If you're interested in any of these illustrations, more on this soon. Okay, more on this illustration soon. See how she has that serpent there, kind of like going all the way up though? You get what I'm saying? You see the tree and all that kind of stuff. This is an interesting illustration right here. I'm gonna actually expound on this a little bit more. But it's very interesting when you think about this process of being connected back up to something by raising the seed from within you, so then we can have this take place to those who are doing what they've been doing to our woman or to our female. You know what I'm saying? So that's what it looks like here. So I know I've been kind of like talking about this whole process, like, no, keep your pants up and all that. So you have to understand it goes with as it was in the days of Noah process, because a lot of stuff is contaminated now. So we're not just in that fruitful, multiply Abraham, Melchizedek, Adamic priesthood area right now. You get what I'm trying to explain? So now we just need to find whoever's going to be qualified, heal our female, and so the female can take care of what needs to be taken care of, so we can get those off the planet who are not serving the planet properly. You get what I'm trying to explain? I'll see you in the next video.